Welcome back to Stronger Minds, Stronger Men. I'm really glad you're here. Today, we're digging into something that a lot of us, maybe even most of us, have lived through without ever really putting a name to it. We're talking about the tough it out culture. That silent rule book that tells men how we're supposed to handle pain, emotion, struggle, pretty much anything that makes us feel vulnerable or, for that matter, human. It's that message we get, sometimes directly, sometimes just picked up in the way people treat us, that says, don't cry, don't talk about it, don't ask for help, man up, push through. Does this sound familiar? And the thing is, it's everywhere. We hear it from our dads, who might have been doing the best they could with what they were taught. We hear it from coaches yelling at us to shake it off, from teachers who praise stoic boys but side-eye the emotional ones, from movies where the hero never flinches, never talks about his feelings, just punches walls and keeps going. Even the job you work, if you're in the military, law enforcement, a first responder, a trade, or any kind of high-stakes pressure environment, that message gets dialed up even louder. And after a while, it doesn't even feel like messages anymore. It's just the air we breathe. It's normal, expected, automatic. But here's what I want to explore today. What's that culture actually doing to us? What's the cost of always being the strong one? What happens when we carry pain without release? When we never give ourselves permission to feel, to process, to be human? Because it's not just about being tough, it's about survival, yeah. But it's also about silence. And silence is when it comes to emotional and mental health, can be dangerous. So today we're going to unpack that, where this mindset comes from, how it shows up in our lives, and most importantly, what we can do to shift it, to build something better, not softer, realer, stronger, in a deeper way. Let's talk and start by really breaking down what I mean when I say and talk about the tough it out culture. This is that mindset, that unspoken rule book that says don't show weakness, don't talk about your feelings, don't cry, don't ask for help, just push through. And look, for a lot of us, those weren't just phrases. They were expectations. They were the way we were trained to be men. Not always directly. Sometimes no one ever sat us down and said those exact words, but the message was still loud and clear. Maybe it was the way your dad stiffened up when you cried. Maybe it was hearing man up when you got hurt, physically or emotionally. Maybe it was the coach who benched you for showing frustration. Maybe it was just silence. The kind of silence that tells you this isn't something we talk about. This culture doesn't need words. It is the look someone gives you when you're vulnerable. It is the praise you get when you toughed it out, even if it almost broke you. It's in the way people change the subject. When you try to open up, it's in the jokes, the sarcasm, the you're being too soft comments that sneak in like landmines. We absorbed it in the locker rooms, firehouses, boardrooms, and barbershops. We picked it up from fathers, uncles, older brothers, movies, rap songs, war stories, and sitcoms. And over time, it becomes part of our identity. So much so that not performing toughness can feel like a failure, a threat to our manhood. And here's the thing. I'm not saying that toughness is always a bad thing. Resilience matters. Grit matters. There's power in being able to stay calm in chaos, to hold the line when things fall apart, especially for men in high stress environments like the military or first responders or even high pressure careers. But the problem is when that version of toughness, the one that says bury it, bottle it, bite down, and keep moving, becomes the only acceptable option. That's when toughness becomes a cage. Because what happens when you can't just push through it anymore? What happens when life hits you in a way that toughness can't fix? When your marriage is falling apart, when grief shows up and doesn't leave? When anxiety wakes you up in the middle of the night in a deep sleep and you're staring at the ceiling, not knowing who to talk to? What do you do then? When the armor you've always worn starts to crack. That's the reality for so many men. We've been handed a single emotional tool: suppression. And then when life demands vulnerability or softness or honesty, we feel stuck, like we're broken for not being able to power through it, when we are just human. And part of what makes this culture so hard to shake is that it rewards us, at least on the surface. You get respect for being the strong one. You get a pat on the back for keeping your feelings in check. People trust you to handle things, to be the rock. But nobody stops to ask, what is it costing you? Internally, nobody sees the emotional weight you're carrying around because you've been trained to hide it so well. And the longer you carry it, that weight in silence gets heavier until something breaks. A relationship, your mental health, or sometimes your body. Chronic stress, high blood pressure, burnout, all tied to the emotional suppression that this culture channel and demands. So yeah, this version of toughness, it's a trap. A beautifully disguised trap that makes us feel proud while quietly eating us from the inside out. And maybe you felt that. Maybe you've been holding it together so long, you don't even remember what it's like to not feel tense or tired anymore or alone. If that's you, just know you're not weak. You're not broken. You're just stuck in a system that taught you to survive, not to live. That taught you to endure pain, but not how to heal from it. And the good news, that system can be unlearned. We'll get into that more in a bit, but for now, just sit with this idea. Real strength is expansive. It includes resilience and rest, toughness and tenderness, holding it down for others and reaching out when you need help. Because you're not meant to do it all alone. No man is. No human is. You might share a personal moment where you realize the mindset was holding you back. Maybe a time you tried to open up and felt shut down. Or when holding it in caused more damage than good. So let's talk about the fallout. Let's talk about the consequences of growing up and living in a culture that tells men to keep it all in, to tough it out, to suck it up and move on. Because here's the truth. When we're trained not to speak up, when we're told not to feel things fully, or even ignore them altogether, that stuff doesn't just disappear. It doesn't evaporate or get handled by stuffing it down. It leaks out. In other ways, in moments of anger we don't even understand, in the way we disconnect from people we love, in the drinking, the scrolling, the gambling, the working ourselves numb, just to avoid feeling anything real. In the panic attacks, the shutdowns, the numbness, in the way our bodies get sick, because our emotions have nowhere else to go. Let's break this down for a minute. First, emotional suppression. This is one of the core effects of tough it out culture. When you've been taught to bury your feelings, they don't just sit quietly. Over time, that buried emotion builds pressure, just like a soda can being shaken from the inside. It shows up as anxiety, which is that constant feeling of unease, like something's wrong, but you can't put your finger on it. Depression, where everything feels dull, meaningless, exhausting. Numbness, and this one's sneaky, because when you shut down the painful stuff, you often lose access to the good stuff too. Joy, connection, excitement. They all get muted. And then we start asking, why can't I feel anything? Well, because you've been taught not to. And your brain, your body, your nervous system listened. Then let's talk about relationships. Because emotional suppression doesn't just affect you, it affects everyone who's around you. Your partner starts to feel like you're emotionally unavailable. Your kids feel confused because they don't know how you feel or what's going on inside you. Your friends stop reaching out because it seems like you're fine or not interested in going deeper. People feel shut out, not because you don't care, but because you were never shown how to let them in. And that's heartbreaking. So many men end up in marriages, friendships, even fatherhood situations where this emotional gap, they don't know how to bridge. Not because they're cold, but because no one ever taught them any other way. Because they're running old programming. Feel less, speak less, stay strong. But real connection doesn't come from performing strength. It comes from being seen. And that can't happen if you're always armoring up. So that leads us right into isolation. When you can't show what's really going on. When you feel like opening up is too much or not manly. You start keeping things to yourself. You stop talking about the hard days. You stop asking for support. You stop trusting people with your truth. And slowly, sometimes without even realizing it, you start pulling away from friends, from your partner, from your family. You became a stranger in your own life. And the words might still see you as stable or strong, but on the inside, you're alone. And let's be real, that loneliness, that's deadly. Which brings us to something a lot of people are afraid to say out loud. Suicide. The hard truth is this. Men die by suicide at a significantly higher rate than women's. And it's not because we're not weaker, it's because we've not been told how to speak. We've been taught that asking for help is weakness, that therapy is soft, that being emotional means you're broken. So we stay quiet. We keep carrying it until it becomes too much. And by the time someone realizes we're not okay, we're already on edge. I've known men, good men, who reached that edge. Some made it back, some didn't. And the common thread? Silence. Not because they wanted to die, but because they didn't know how to live while feeling everything they were feeling. This is why conversations like this matter, because this isn't about mental health as some vague clinical term. This is about life, day-to-day life, real life. It's about whether you can show up for your family emotionally, not just physically. Whether you can love fully and let yourself be loved. Whether you can find rest or peace or purpose without pretending to be okay when you're not. Mental health isn't the quiet moments, lying awake at night with your thoughts racing, snapping at someone you love and not knowing why, feeling tired no matter how much you sleep, wondering why nothing makes you feel alive anymore. It's not just about diagnoses or doctors. It's about being human. It's about the quality of your life. I'll be real with you. I've had moments where I carried way too much, where I thought I should be able to handle this. Other guys would have figured it out by now. But that mindset only led to more pressure and more pain. It wasn't until I started letting go of that pain and the whole tough it out idea that things actually started to shift. Not overnight, but gradually, step by step. So, yeah, the consequences are real. The silence, it cost us emotionally and physically, relationally, and sometimes it costs lives. But here's the hope. Just like the culture was taught, it can be untaught. We can start to choose differently, speaking differently, living differently. It starts with awareness. It continues with action. So where does this all come from? Why is tough it out culture so deeply wired into us? Why is it so hard for men, even when we want to open up, to actually do it? To really answer that, we have to zoom out. Because this isn't just a modern issue. This goes way back. Historically, men were hunters, warriors, protectors. We were the ones who left the cage to go get food or fight off a threat. We were trained literally for generations to shut down fear, ignore pain, and focus only on survival. If you were in a battle or out in the wilderness or defending your family, showing emotion could mean death. If you hesitated, if you got overwhelmed, if you broke down, that was it. So the men who didn't show emotion, they survived and they passed that strategy down. And look, that's real. That's evolutionary. There's a reason our nervous systems are wired the way they are. There's a reason some of us go numb under pressure or push through exhaustion or default to anger instead of sadness. Those traits had a survival value. But here's the shift. We're not in that survival mode 24/7 anymore. Most of us aren't fighting wars or running from predators every day. We're navigating relationships. We're raising kids, building careers, trying to stay emotional and available for our partners. We're grieving losses, dealing with burnout, trying to heal from childhood trauma or past mistakes. We're living in a world where emotional awareness isn't a liability. It's necessary. But here's the catch. We're still being handed tools built for war. We're still being told to be strong, don't talk about it, shake it off, push through. And while that might help in a crisis or a short-term emergency, it doesn't help us stay connected or grounded or whole in day-to-day life. We're trying to solve emotional problems with survival tools and then wondering, why isn't it working? Let's add in a few more layers to all this. For a lot of us, we weren't just taught these behaviors. We inherited them. Maybe your dad didn't talk about emotions because his dad didn't. And maybe his dad was a veteran who came back from war and never spoke about it and what he saw. Maybe he coped with alcohol or silence or anger. And that became the emotional language of your household. That's generational trauma. It's not just about big, dramatic events. It's about emotional patterns being passed down like heirlooms. You might not even realize you're carrying it, but it shows up in the way you shut down during arguments, in the way you feel responsible for everyone else's emotions but ignore your own, in the way you tense up when someone gets too close emotionally. Then there's the culture we grow up in. And this looks different depending on where you are from, how you were raised, what communities you're part of. In a lot of cultures, especially Black, Latino, Indigenous, Asians, immigrant communities, there's a huge emphasis on strength, pride and not showing weakness. And again, a lot of that came from real survival, from systems that didn't allow us to be vulnerable. But the side effect is that emotional honesty starts to feel unsafe or even shameful. And if you're in the military, law enforcement, firefighting, EMS, or even high straight businesses, you get another layer on top of this. In those environments, vulnerability is often seen as a liability. You're expected to be steady one, the calm one, the rock, especially if lives are on the line. And that's understandable. In the moment of crisis, there is value to staying focused and composed. But the problem is, no one teaches you how to take that armor off when the shift ends. So you keep it on at home with your spouse, with your kids. You stay in mission mode, even when you're breaking inside. And over time, that disconnect grows between who you are at work and who you want to be as a partner, a father, a friend, or just a human being. The result is when you combine all these things, history, generational patterns, culture, and career conditioning, what you get is a deeply rooted message. Pain is weakness. Asking for help means you failed. You're only as strong as your ability to stay quiet and hold it all together. And maybe that worked for survival, but it doesn't work for healing. It doesn't work for the emotional connection. It doesn't work for raising emotional, intelligent kids or being present in a relationship or getting through grief in a healthy way. So when we talk about undoing tough it out culture, we're not just talking about feelings. We're talking about evolution, about growth, about choosing a new way forward, one that still honors resilience, but also makes space for reflection, for softness, for support. We're not saying don't be tough. We're saying learn when to be tough and when to be tender. That's what real strength looks like in this chapter of life. So after all this talk about where tough it all culture comes from and the damage it does, here's the part I really want to land on. There's hope. We are not stuck with a script. We don't have to keep running the same emotional playbook we were handed. We can rewrite it. We can choose a different way of being, one that doesn't throw away strength, but redefines it. Because let's be real, true strength, it's not just about what you can endure. It's about what you're willing to face. It's not just grinding through the pain. It's being honest about it. It's not about keeping your walls up. It's about knowing when to let them down. Strength is owning your story, not hiding it. It's having the courage to stay. I'm not okay right now. It's about showing up fully, even when it's messy, even when it's hard. Here's the beautiful thing. When men start to talk, really talk, it changes everything. It opens doors. It makes room. It creates safety for yourself and for the people around it. It models something new for the next generation. When a boy sees his father express emotion in a healthy way, he learns that feelings aren't the enemy. He learns that masculinity doesn't mean being disconnected. It means being responsible with your power. And your daughters, they learn they deserve emotional, available men in their life. That they don't have to settle for coldness dressed up as control. When you start to break the silence, it doesn't just impact you, it ripples outward. It depends your relationships. It invites people closer. And yeah, it keeps us alive, literally. Because silence can kill, but connection can heal. So let's talk about what that healing can look like. Here's what the breaking the cycle might actually look like in real life. Not as some perfect Instagram quote, but in the day-to-day life. It might look like going to therapy, not because you're broken, but because you're brave enough to look at your stuff, brave enough to unpack what you've been carrying for way too long. It might look like calling a friend when you're not okay, not just for a beer or a laugh, but to say, hey, I'm going through something. Can I talk to you for a minute? It might look like letting yourself cry. No shame, no apology, just letting that emotion move through your body instead of stuffing it down. Again. It might look like telling your kid, hey, you know what? I'm struggling too. And in that moment, you show them that adults don't always have it together and that it's okay. You teach them honesty, humility, and humanity. It might even look like asking for a hug without shame. Yeah, I said it. Not making a joke out of it, not playing it cool, just letting yourself need something and receiving it. And look, I'm not saying this stuff is easy. It's not. Trust me, I know. We're not just changing habits, we're unlearning decades, maybe even generations of emotional programming. We're going against everything that world taught us about what it means to be a man. And that can feel awkward, vulnerable, even scary. You might try opening up and your voice shakes. You might sit in therapy and have no idea what to say. You might reach out to someone and they don't respond the way you need or hoped. That's part of the process. Healing is messy. Growth is awkward, but you don't have to do it perfectly. You just have to start. You have to try. Because here's what I know. It's worth it. You are worth it. Your peace is worth it. Your connection is worth it. Your future, your joy, your sense of self is worth it. So maybe today is the day you ask a new question. Instead of how can I stay strong, try asking what would it look like to be real. Instead of how do I keep it together, ask who can I talk about this with and what's actually going on. Instead of how do I hide this, ask what if this part of me needs to be seen? And every time you take a step in that direction, no matter how small, you're breaking the cycle. You're helping create a world where men can carry and men can be whole, not just hardened. Where we don't have to tough it out just to make it through the day. Where strength and softness can exist together. That's the kind of world I want to live in. That's the kind of legacy I want to leave. And I have a feeling if you made it this far, you probably do too. So if you're listening to this right now and you've been trying to hold it all together on your own, I just want you to say this, or I just want to say this as clearly and honestly as I can. I see you, really. I see the effort it takes to get through the day when everything in you feels heavy. I see the pressure it comes to keep it together. When what you want, really want, is to fall apart. Even just for a moment, I see how easy it is to put on a mask, crack the jokes, stay productive, and quietly wonder, is anyone even noticing how much I am carrying right now? And if that's you, I've been there. Truly, I know what it's like to sit in the silence, to feel the weight of everything and thinking, I should be able to handle this, to believe that asking for help means you're falling and failing, when really it's the first sign that you're still fighting. So let me say it again and say it clearly. You don't have to do it alone. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. That's strength in its truest form, not silence endurance, but shared burden. Because no matter what anyone told you growing up, no matter and no man is an island. We're not meant to carry grief, shame, confusion, or fear by ourselves. That's what this podcast is really about. It's not just a place to listen, it's a place to be reminded that you're not the only one. This is about breaking that silence together. Whether you're a first responder, a dad, a husband, a brother, a friend, or just a man trying to make it through the day without falling apart, you belong here. And your story, exactly as it is, matters here. So if something's stirring in you right now, if you've got a story you've been sitting with, something you're wrestling through, or even if you just want to say, man, I'm tired of pretending I'm fine, reach out to me, to a friend, to a therapist, to someone you trust. Just don't keep it locked inside anymore. Because silence can feel safe, but it's not healing. And connection, even the smallest moment of connection, that can change everything. So here's your invitation. If this episode spoke to you or spoke to something in you, don't just move on to the next thing. Sit with it, breathe through it, and then take it one small step. Send a text, make the call, speak the words out loud, even if your voice shakes. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to be willing to take the first step towards not being alone anymore. Thank you for being here today. Seriously, thank you for taking the time to sit with us, to listen, and maybe even reflect on your own story a little bit. If this episode hit home for you, if it stirred something real, share it. Send it to a brother, to a friend, a teammate, someone in your life who might be carrying more than they let on, who could use a reminder that they're not alone in what they're feeling. Because that's how we change this culture. One honest conversation at a time. And remember this. Talking about it isn't weakness. It's strength. It's healing. It's how we start to build and rebuild what was never meant to be carried alone. So until next time, stay grounded, stay connected, and most of all, stay human.